And here we are at chapter 16, verse 11. For which cause both you and all your company are gathered together against the Lord. And what is Aaron that you murmur against him? Notes. Now let it ever be known, when we pervert the word of the Lord, this puts us against the Lord. I'll go ahead and I'll read the scripture again. And what is Aaron that you murmur against him? Now Moses is saying that Aaron is just a poor, weak human being attempting to carry out the work of the Lord. Well, they thought they were opposed to Aaron. In truth, they were actually opposed to God himself. When we oppose that which is clearly of God, we have, in essence, actually opposed God. And as we can see, God has slightly miffed at these people. Verse 12. And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, We will not come up. Notes. In other words, they're flatly saying that they will not obey what Moses has said, and evidently they were in league with Korah, apparently. Verse 13. Is it a small thing that you have brought us up out of the land that flows with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except you make yourself altogether a prince over us? Notes. Now, whenever they're talking about a land flowing with milk and honey, obviously they have not actually gone and founded Israel as God had planned. The only place that they could be referring to was Egypt. This is not a contradiction, as some may claim. They're actually saying that Egypt was really their promised land, which should show you just how deep their rebellion actually is. And also, well, in the first place, Moses didn't really put himself in this position. God actually did, if you think about it. Verse 14. Moreover, you have not brought us into a land that flows with milk and honey. Scripture. Just like I said. They were talking about Egypt, and now they're saying that you have not brought us into this other one that you've promised. Scripture. Or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards, will you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. Notes. Now, they refused to recognize that they were still in the wilderness because of their unbelief. Now, being condemned to 38 years of wandering in that wilderness was their fault, and not the fault of Moses and Aaron. Men forever attempt to blame their circumstances on others instead of where it rightfully belongs. And guess what? It's usually on themselves. Verse 15. And Moses was very wroth, and said unto the Lord, Respect not thou their offering. I have not taken one ass from them, neither have I hurt one of them. Note, he had not enriched himself one bit as a result of his position. As well, he is asking that the Lord, that their sacrifices not be accepted, which means that unless the situation was rectified, they would be eternally lost. Scripture. And Moses said unto Korah, Be thou and all your company before the Lord, thou and they and Aaron tomorrow. And take every man his censer, and put incense in them, and bring ye before the Lord every man his censer, 250 censers. You also and Aaron, each of you his censer. Notes. They were demanding that they serve in some capacity in the priesthood, so their claims would now be actually put to the test, as we shall soon see. Verse 18. And they took every man his censer, and put fire in them. Notes. Now, whether this is fire from the brazen altar, we are not actually told. Scripture. And laid incense thereon, and stood in the door of the tabernacle of the congregation with Moses and Aaron. Notes. Now, like I believe I said before, the door of the tabernacle probably referred here to the opening or gate that led into the court. So they stood in that opening, or else immediately outside, where they could be observed by all the people. Scripture. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. Notes. Now there seem to have been quite a number who sided with Korah against Moses and Aaron. In answer to this, the Lord actually appeared himself. Now what exactly this means we aren't told, But at any rate, the entirety of the congregation of Israel knew that it was the Lord, and as we might well imagine, he slightly TO'd these people. Verse 20, And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. Notes, now the situation was different before the cross, and for many reasons. However, to be sure, although in a different way, the Lord is still consuming those who rebel against Christ and the cross. While it may take one form or another, the end result is always the same. Hold on just a second. I believe the notes for that is Romans chapter 1, verse 18. I may be wrong about that. Verse 22. And they who were Moses and Aaron fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will you be wroth with all the congregation? Actually, I could read this scripture this way. And they who were Moses and Aaron fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, who made man, shall Korah sin, and will you be wroth with all the congregation? Notes. Now, obviously, we see that Moses intercedes for Israel that they be not judged for what Korah's sin. It was this man who had misled all the rest. And now, deceiving spirits, I might add, work then, and they do now. And they do so in the exact same fashion, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Verse 23. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the congregation, saying, Get you up about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spoke unto the congregation, saying, Depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest you be consumed in all their sins. Notes. Now, evidently Moses and the elders of Israel were standing near the tents of these individuals. The Lord has already told them that judgment was soon to come. Verse 27. So they got up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of the tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children. Notes. This is very regrettable. The judgment would include the entirety of the families as well. Verse 28. And Moses said, Hereby you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own mind. If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. Notes. Now Moses is really rolling some dice right here, and they are cast. Verse 30. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth, and swallow them up, with all that appertain unto them, and they go down unto the pit, then you shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. Notes. Knowing of the miracles that Moses had seen and been a part of, and that the Lord had worked through the hand of this man to do mighty things, one would think that these men would have repented. However, deception is a very powerful force. Even though proof is offered, deception cannot see the reality because deception doesn't want to see the reality. Therefore, it believes a lie, which is the condition of most of the world and even most of the church. And we will have to pick up in Numbers chapter 16, verse 31. Thank you very much.